In today's video, we have all the latest NHL trade talks focusing on the Maple Leafs, the Habs, the Sens, as well as the Golden Knights. Plus, we have a claim on the NHL waiver wire, we have some signings, injury updates, and more. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. First up, news on the NHL waiver wire. Yesterday, we announced the Islanders placed forward Austin Czarnik on waivers. He has been picked up. He was claimed by the Seattle Kraken, so obviously he'll report there, and the Islanders free up a roster spot. I don't necessarily think the Islanders wanted to lose him, but certainly they had to, juggle their roster. That's just a numbers game victim, I guess you could say, but Czarnik will get more of an opportunity for sure with Seattle, and we'll see what he can do. The last couple of years, he has only been able to play sparsely at the NHL level. We'll see if he gets more of an opportunity over there. And new on waivers today, we have Dennis Cholowski on waivers from Washington. Of course, they had picked him up from the Seattle Kraken, who's, of course, he's also formerly of Detroit, ended up in Seattle, got put on waivers. Caps claimed him around the beginning of the season, and now he's on waivers with them. Never really played a whole lot, spent some time on the taxi squad, so we'll see what happens with him, or if he ends up getting reassigned or claimed at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. We had another hiring as well, a couple official hires finally. We had talked about before that it looked like Daniel Briere of Philadelphia was getting a promotion. The Flyers have finally officially announced that. Now we know the official title. He's been given the title of Special Assistant to the General Manager. It was speculated he was going to be made more of an assistant GM, but I guess this is almost a different kind of role in a sense, but still a promotion for sure. They want to get him more involved, and you would have to think with this elevation of duties for Briere that maybe whenever the time comes to move on from Fletcher, that maybe Briere will end up being the guy in Philly. Maybe they're trying to groom him to maybe be the next in line for that job. We'll have to see where things go in that sense. And the Anaheim Ducks, who of course are hiring Scott Niedermayer officially now. Of course, he was involved as one of a few former players that were involved in the GM search committee that they had put together along with Paul Kariya. He's now officially on payroll with the Anaheim Ducks as a special advisor of hockey operations. So a similar role to Briere, special advisor, assistant type of role, but a little bit different, where he's involved more in a different capacity, but still both NHL longtime veterans, more involved in the NHL, can only be a good thing for their teams as well as the league. A few injury updates and COVID issue updates. The Jets are without a few key players, including Dubois and Pionk, are both in COVID protocol. The Oilers had to place goalie Mikko Koskinen in COVID protocol as well, so they've called up Stuart Skinner again. So we'll see where that goes. Hopefully none of these guys will be out too long. Tuukka Rask with the Boston Bruins. Of course, he's been out for some time, as we know, with the Bruins. And we've got an update from Bruce Cassidy indicating that he won't practice this week. So it's not sounding real promising that he's going to be able to play for some time. It's really hard to say where things are heading. Of course, they have Allmark and Swayman. They're in good shape that way, but obviously they signed Rask to come back and be a part of things for the rest of the year, and so far it hasn't worked out. We'll see how long he'll be out. We'll have to probably wait till next week before we likely hear further updates, would be my guess on that. And the Leafs did get a bit of a scare last night with Austin Matthews. Of course, the Leafs were playing the Hurricanes. It was a very tight, closing game. Ended up going to overtime. Matthews had scored 2 goals, but late in the third period, I believe there was only like a minute or maybe even less than that left in the game. I know I've seen it happen live. I was watching the Leafs and Canes, where he was going in towards the corner, got tripped up, and he ended up hitting his head on, I believe it was Brett Pesce's knee leg area. So it was kind of just a fluke play, really, but ended up with him having contact to the head. So he was down for some time, had to go off into concussion protocol because of it, so he missed the rest of the period in the overtime, which the Leafs did win on a goal by Mitch Marner. But Matthews is not really, status isn't clear of moving forward. I know Sheldon Keefe said today that he came in to the rink and he was feeling okay, but that doesn't mean for sure that he'll be cleared or won't miss time, but at least it's promising, but we'll see. Certainly a good scare though, regardless. They certainly don't want him being out long-term or anything like that with concussions and stuff for sure. That would be a big blow to the Maple Leafs. Now, as I mentioned, we also have a trio of signings today. including a lot of linkages to St. Louis, either the Blues or the city. St. Louis native Pat Maroon signs again with Tampa, signs an extension. Of course, he's already been there for a few years, on his third season now. He's back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. Of course, before that, he won the Stanley Cup with his hometown team, the St. Louis Blues. So Pat Maroon has been a three-time consecutive back-to-back champion. Signs for 2 more years at $1 million apiece. So the Big Rig is staying in Tampa for a little bit longer. Pretty good deal. Good character guy. Plays a solid bottom 6 role. They like him there clearly. And of course, he has a long relationship with John Cooper, so that works well. So he's staying there. We'll see. I know people were joking maybe Tampa will go on a 4 or 5-peat now, because the cup seems to follow Maroon now, so we'll see where that goes. And of course, the St. Louis Blues also signed a couple of players, including hometown boy Logan Brown, who they picked up from the Ottawa Senators for Zach Sanford in a trade earlier this season. I don't know if it's fair to say Brown's been really kind of great, bad. I'm not really sure how to describe it. It's kind of in between. I'm not really sure it's been great. I'm not really sure it's been terrible. It's just been kind of okay. I believe he's got around 6 points in 17 games. Not playing a huge role, but we'll see. They want to keep him around. He signs a 1-year, one-way deal for $750 next year. So clearly, if things don't go well in training camp and they don't see him as making the main roster, he'll need waivers again, and we'll see what that means for his future. But certainly Logan Brown sticking around there. So a couple of hometown St. Louis guys getting new contracts, and the Blues also signed defenseman Robert Bortuzzo, who signs a 2-year deal at $950 for what he brings. Really, that's a good contract. So that's a good signing, good character guy again, who plays super hard every night. Not a big name, not a big star, but he does a lot of the little things right, defends well. And like I said, it's just a super hard worker and good character guy to have around the room. So it's some good signings by the St. Louis Blues there today. A couple of inexpensive ones that will go a long way in helping them manage their cap. Same thing goes for Maroon with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, of course, we have a variety of trade talk today. Let's kick things off with Vegas. We know that Jack Eichel is getting close to returning. I talked about it a bit yesterday, how he got rid of the no-contact jersey and was a full participant in practice. Of course, now we know it's going to be probably a week, maybe a week to 10 days before he actually plays. He's going to need more time to be a regular participant in full contact drills, getting used to everything, getting some chemistry going, getting his timing back and all that before he'll likely play. But of course, the Vegas Golden Knights need cap space to activate him. So the plan here is, what are they going to do? I mean, there was talk on a couple of places I've seen today. I was listening to Jeff Merrick and Elliot Friedman talk about it on the Jeff Merrick show. Merrick questions whether or not they might trade William Karlsson. There's been a lot of talk about Riley Smith being the odd man out because he's a pending UFA and they might not be able to bring him back anyway. And I wouldn't rule that out either. But given the fact that there's been a connection to Riley Smith to Gerard Gallant in New York, there's been rumor that they want a player who can play a top 6 role. Might happen, right? But of course, I did speculate that, knowing that Vegas is in a tough cap situation, the teams are going to lowball them and probably try to get themselves a real steal of a deal here. So we'll see what they end up happening. Still have Alec Martinez on LTIR, so they have some wiggle room there. But of course, to bring Martinez back later, they'd need to free up more space again. So whether or not they do that all in one swoop or they do it gradually, we'll see. I'm not sure the exact time frame we're looking at for a Martinez return, but you're needing close to $5 million. He said, Merrick said maybe William Karlsson's the odd guy out. He signed long term at $5.9 million, so moving that gives him a lot more flexibility. You have Jack Eichel, who should be your number 1 center, no doubt. You got Chandler Stevenson, who's been an excellent peak pickup for them, signed for a few more years too at $2.75, and he's been a solid, really for the most part, he's had to be a number 1 center and done an okay job. So if you put him at number 2, you still got guys like Nolan Patrick in the mix. You've still got Janmark who can play center. You still got Kolazar who can be a bottom 6 center. Maybe they can afford to let William Karlsson go and get the free up the cap space here. I mean, he's not having a fantastic year stats-wise. I mean, to be honest, where Vegas is on the West Coast, I don't get to see them play as much as some other teams. I've seen them play a handful of times this year, but not as much as the Eastern team, so maybe somebody can speak to this. But from what I've seen, I just don't think Karlsson's having as good of a season, so they might have to sell low, though, was the problem, given his contract and their overall situation. But let me know who you think is going to be the odd guy out in Vegas. But we should see a Vegas trade of some sort, freeing up some money sometime in the next week. And I think Merrick might be onto something, that maybe Karlsson could be the guy. If not, it's probably going to be Riley Smith. Maybe it's Evgeny Dadonov. It's got to be one of those guys. I mean, Friedman went on to say that it doesn't have to be a center. It could be a winger. You can't have too many guys that play center, and he's not wrong on that. But cap-wise and looking at it all, I think Merrick might have a point. So we'll see where things go on that front, but I'd love to know what everybody thinks. What are the Golden Knights going to do to create the space to activate Eichel? Now, apparently the Ottawa Senators are getting a ton of phone calls lately as well, according to Pierre LeBrun. Numerous players, including several pending UFAs, are getting lots of interest, and Pierre Dorian's phone has been blowing up over the All-Star break is what's being reported now. Of course, we already know about Chris Tierney, and there's a link there to maybe the Minnesota Wild. The Sens and Wild have scouted each other a lot recently. Of course, there's Nick Paul, who many think there's a good chance the Senators get him signed and they don't trade him. I think that of all their UFAs, he's the most likely to stay. You get Anton Forsberg, so that's not quite clear what's going to happen to him. They're getting interest apparently from teams like Washington and Florida, so they have to consider that, but I guess they have to determine if they're willing to move on with Murray and another goalie, maybe Gustafsson, as of next year. So that's a big question. Josh Brown, a big, strong defenseman who's played better as of late. He's had his moments though where he struggled, and I don't see him coming back to Ottawa, so there's a good chance he could get moved if somebody wants a number 7 D that's big and strong and can fight. That might get the job done. You get Tyler Ennis, who's been on a 1-year deal, seems like forever in the NHL, coming up again. And of course, you get Zach Sanford, who they acquired from St. Louis for Logan Brown, as I mentioned earlier. It's debatable whether or not he stays around. He might get signed to a cheaper contract, but it's possible he gets moved as well. So we'll have to see where that goes. But the Sens are getting tons of calls. They might be a busy team, even though nobody expects them to do anything drastic or significant. A lot of these smaller deals might add up, and they could still end up being one of the busier teams heading towards the deadline. Now, when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens, Montreal Hockey Now is reporting that sources that they've talked to over the All-Star break indicate that from what they've heard from the conversations going on between the Habs, Brass, and Gordon and Hughes to other teams, it seems like they might actually be considering more of a retool than a rebuild. We may not see as many players shipped out of Montreal as we think, and the ones we do might be more for like hockey trades, 1-for-1 type of deals, not so much for all picks and prospects. So we'll get more clarity on this here soon, but certainly it would lead you to think that some players like a Kulak or a Sherratt, they'd likely be moved for picks or prospects, but other players that are, kind of being considered, whether it be Jeff Petrie or whether we're talking about Jonathan Drouin or Tyler Toffoli or any of those guys, if they do make trades, they're looking to probably shake things up and kind of retool. That's what the word is from them today. So we'll see over time if that appears to be accurate or not. Not really. I'm not entirely convinced either way. A lot of people are assuming they're going the rebuild route. And to be honest, that's what I think they're going to do too. But until they start to make moves or give us more of a sense of what they're doing, it's really kind of hard to predict. But according to them, that's what the Habs are up to here as of late. When it comes to the Maple Leafs, Chris Johnson's reporting that we're not likely to see anything too significant, that they're likely going to be trying to add a defenseman. When it comes to who they're going to move, they'd love to move Nick Ritchie. Obviously, that's tying up cap space that they'd like to have back. But that's going to be tough to do. They might have to add a sweetener, so Richie's certainly available, but might be hard to do. They're open to trading Travis Dermott and Justin Hall. They've been made available numerous times this season, but depending on their injury and COVID situations, there have been times where they've not been available too, so it's not quite clear if they'll be moved. But I think based on what CJ is saying, it sounds like they're open to it. It just depends on the deal, but they're certainly looking to make either an upgrade or just a change of mix back there. As I mentioned, they might want some Jake Muzzin insurance. Another D who can play similar style to him would be probably quite beneficial. He also indicated that they could move a prospect or more, including guys like Nick Robertson or Rodion Amirov, who's a former first-round pick too. So certainly some pieces there that they are toying with moving for the right player, but adding on that blue line, what we've been talking about, seems to be the way they go. I mean, clearly, like I mentioned before, he didn't really get into names that they'd be targeting, just that they want like probably a rugged physical style defenseman. So like Josh Manson, if he's available in Anaheim, that's certainly a player they've had their eye on for quite some time. I think Jacob Chikrin's going to be too expensive, so I don't see that happening. Otherwise, you're looking at maybe a Luke Shen, like I talked about. That wouldn't come very expensive. It's a little bit less of a it's not really an upgrade, it's just a change of mix, and it wouldn't be an expensive thing to do. So that's the type of things the Maple Leafs are trying to do, according to Chris Johnson. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today. We'll discuss down in the comments. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.